Honor crimes occur when a family member, often a woman, is harmed or even murdered by relatives who believe her actions have brought shame upon the family. The perceived dishonor can arise from behaviors such as refusing an arranged marriage, seeking a divorce, engaging in relationships deemed inappropriate, or behaving in ways considered sexually immoral or contrary to cultural or religious norms. Rooted in patriarchal and conservative traditions, family honor is closely tied to the actions of women. Despite being illegal in many countries, these crimes still occur, often with impunity, due to societal support for the practice or lack of effective legal enforcement. Honor crimes are widely condemned by human rights organizations and are seen as extreme manifestations of gender-based violence and oppression. Hello, aloha, bonjour, hola, hello, hujambo, marhaba, ni hao, namaste everyone. Welcome to Crime Watch Vault. Today's story takes us to Al-Diwaniyah, a city in central Iraq, serving as the capital of the Al-Qadisiyah Governorate. Situated along the Euphrates River, it is a significant agricultural hub known for its fertile lands and irrigation systems. The city has a predominantly Shia Muslim population and reflects the traditional and conservative cultural values typical of the region. Al-Diwaniyah's economy is primarily based on agriculture, with crops like rice, wheat, and barley being major products. Despite its rich cultural heritage and historical significance, the city faces challenges such as political instability, economic struggles, and issues related to infrastructure and public services. Tiba Alali was born in 2000 in Al-Diwaniyah, a central Iraqi city in the Al-Qadisiyah Governorate. Her parents were traditional and adhered to conservative values, reflecting the broader societal norms of their region. Tiba grew up in a family with several siblings, experiencing the common dynamics of a large household. From a young age, Tiba exhibited a strong and independent personality, which sometimes clashed with the expectations imposed by her family and community. Her childhood was marked by these tensions, as she navigated the complexities of growing up in a conservative environment while yearning for more freedom and autonomy. Despite the restrictive atmosphere, Tiba managed to pursue her education, showing promise and determination. However, the exact details of her educational background remain limited. In 2017, at the age of 17, Tiba made a significant decision to leave Iraq and move to Turkey. This move was driven by her desire to escape the constraints of her upbringing and seek a more independent life. In Turkey, Tiba began to document her experiences and thoughts through social media platforms, gaining a following for her candid and often controversial discussions about her life, gender norms, and the challenges faced by women in conservative societies. Tiba's life in Turkey had been marked by newfound freedom and success. Since moving to Turkey in 2017, she flourished in her independent life, embracing the opportunities that came her way. Her social media presence, where she posted daily videos about her experiences, her relationship with her Syrian fiancé, and her daily life, gained her a substantial following of over 20,000 subscribers. These posts reflected her happiness and the vibrant lifestyle she enjoyed in her new home. However, despite her success and the joy she found in Turkey, her relationship with her family remained strained. Her father, in particular, had strong disapproval of her decision to live independently in a foreign country, away from his oversight. His discontent was further exacerbated by Tiba's plans to marry her fiancé, which he viewed as a direct challenge to the traditional values he upheld. The discord between Tiba's modern lifestyle and her family's conservative expectations created a widening rift, deepening the familial tensions. Her joyful social media updates, which showcased her newfound autonomy and happiness, only served to intensify this divide. Unbeknownst to her followers, a storm was brewing behind the scenes of her seemingly perfect online life. In early 2023, as Tiba's life in Turkey continued to flourish, an unexpected call from Iraq disrupted her newfound peace. Her mother, whose voice was filled with longing and promises of reconciliation, reached out to her. Despite the years of estrangement and the painful memories that had led Tiba to leave Iraq in the first place, her mother's pleas tugged at her heart. The call evoked memories of family and home that she had tried to leave behind, stirring a complex mix of emotions. Tiba had initially planned a trip to Iraq for later in the year, hoping to reconcile with her family on her own terms. Her mother's call seemed to validate these plans, strengthening Tiba's resolve to make the journey sooner. With this renewed hope, she decided to advance her trip to Iraq, hoping that time might have softened her family's stance and that reconciliation was possible. As she prepared for the journey, Tiba was cautiously optimistic. She looked forward to reconnecting with her mother and hoped that the passage of time might have eased the tensions. Yet, a seed of apprehension lingered in her mind. The memories of past conflicts and the reasons behind her departure from Iraq weighed heavily on her. To manage the potential conflicts, Tiba devised a careful strategy for her return. She planned to meet her mother alone first at a close friend's house in Baghdad, deliberately avoiding her family home. This neutral ground was intended to provide a safe space for an initial reunion, allowing mother and daughter to reconnect without the immediate pressure of the entire family's presence. Tiba saw this meeting as a way to gauge the current family dynamics and her mother's state of mind. If the encounter went well, she intended to gradually re-establish contact with other family members, including her father, in a controlled and measured manner. Her goal was to navigate the complex terrain of family reconciliation while maintaining some control over the situation. On January 31, 2023, Tiba arrived in Baghdad, her heart racing as she stepped off the plane onto Iraqi soil for the first time in years. A mix of nostalgia and anxiety washed over her as she made her way through the familiar yet changed city. She headed to her friend's house, expecting a private and emotional reunion with her mother. However, as she entered the house, her world was turned upside down. Instead of finding just her mother waiting, she was met with her entire family gathered there. It quickly became apparent to Tiba that she had walked into a carefully orchestrated trap. The promise of a loving reunion had been a ruse, a ploy to lure her back into a family fold that disapproved of her life in Turkey. The house that was meant to be a neutral meeting ground had turned into the stage for a confrontation she had desperately tried to avoid. The atmosphere in the room turned hostile as soon as Tiba arrived. Her family began berating her for her choices and her decision to live in Turkey with her fiancé. Despite her attempts to explain and defend herself, her words fell on deaf ears. Her family, enraged and unwilling to listen, closed in around her, cutting off any possibility of escape. They forcibly drugged her, rendering her defenseless and unable to resist. Once incapacitated, Tiba was bundled into a car and driven to her family home in Al-Diwaniyah, over 100 miles south of Baghdad. Throughout the journey, she remained under the influence of the drugs, unable to call for help or escape her dire situation. The drive was a harrowing ordeal, with Tiba in a state of helplessness, unsure of what awaited her at her family's home. Upon arriving at the family home, a heated argument erupted between Tiba and her father. The confrontation, fueled by years of tension and cultural differences, escalated rapidly. Tiba, exhausted and emotionally drained, desperately tried to defend her right to live as she wished. Her father, however, was unmoved and consumed by his beliefs about family honor and traditional values. In the early hours of the morning, as Tiba slept in her old room, her father entered. Driven by what he later described as a desire to cleanse the family's honor, he approached his sleeping daughter with brutal intent. In a horrifying act, he strangled Tiba and unalived her. The very person who should have protected her became the agent of her destruction. The next morning, Tiba's father turned himself into the local police. He confessed to unaliving her, attempting to justify his actions as a matter of family honor. He claimed that Tiba's independent lifestyle in Turkey and her plans to marry her fiancé had brought shame upon the family, leading him to take such drastic measures. The news of Tiba being unalived sent shockwaves through Iraq and beyond. What began as a personal tragedy quickly evolved into a national reckoning, forcing Iraqis to confront the dark reality of so-called honor-based violence and the broader issue of gender-based violence in their society. Tiba's being unalived became a symbol of the urgent need for societal change and reform to protect women from such horrific acts and to challenge deeply entrenched cultural practices that perpetuate violence. Tiba was unalived in January 2023 provoked a powerful and widespread reaction from both the Iraqi community and the global audience. Within Iraq, her being unalived was met with intense shock and grief. The local community, already grappling with issues of gender-based violence, was deeply unsettled by the brutal nature of the crime and the betrayal of a father against his daughter. Public outcry and media coverage highlighted the pressing need to address honor-based violence and to challenge deeply entrenched cultural practices that perpetuate such atrocities. Globally, Tiba's story garnered significant attention, drawing empathy and outrage from international human rights organizations and media. Activists used her tragic death to spotlight issues of gender-based violence, particularly in conservative societies where honor-based violence remains prevalent. The global reaction was marked by calls for action and reform, with many advocating for stronger protections for women and greater scrutiny of cultural practices that enable violence. Tiba was buried in her hometown of Al-Diwaniyah in February 2023, with her funeral attended by family and community members. The burial was overshadowed by the tragic circumstances of her death, and the event served as a somber occasion for reflection on the societal issues exposed by her murder. The community's response was a mix of mourning and condemnation, as many grappled with the implications of her death. In February 2023, protests against Tiba's murder erupted across Iraq. Activists gathered to demand a law against domestic violence and to bring attention to the rising violence against women in the country. These protests were marked by passionate calls for justice and urgent legislative changes to protect women. The demonstrations highlighted the widespread frustration with the lack of effective legal frameworks to address and prevent gender-based violence. In April 2023, Tiba's father, Tayyip Ali, was given a 6-month jail sentence for her murder. This lenient sentence sparked further outrage and debate. General Sadman of the Iraqi Interior Ministry explained to the BBC that an accident happened to Tiba. In the perspective of law, it is a criminal accident, and in other perspectives, it is an accident of honor killings. The court's decision to impose such a light sentence was seen as a reflection of the deeply ingrained cultural attitudes towards honor-based violence and the need for significant legal reforms. Tiba's case played a role in sparking discussions about legal reforms in Iraq. The heightened awareness and public outcry put pressure on the government to address honor-based violence more robustly. While immediate sweeping reforms were not implemented solely because of her case, it contributed to broader conversations about the need for stronger protections for women and comprehensive legislation against gender-based violence. Advocacy groups used the visibility of Tiba's story to push for legal changes and societal reform. The immediate aftermath of Tiba's being unalived left her family in turmoil, with significant scrutiny and criticism from both the public and media. The father, serving a short sentence, has been the focus of legal and media attention, while other family members have faced the fallout from the incident. The case continues to affect their lives, with ongoing discussions about the circumstances leading to such a tragic outcome. Tiba being unalived has underscored the urgent need for societal change and legal reform. It has highlighted the importance of addressing the root causes of honor-based violence and creating an environment where women can live free from fear and oppression. Her story remains a poignant reminder of the critical work needed to combat gender-based violence and ensure the safety and rights of individuals worldwide. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe and click the bell.